Hey there, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement and bringing you, yes you, another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training where I take a concept, a strategy, something that we do in Autism Fitness to absolutely elevate our neurodivergent athletes and make fitness the thing in their lives that becomes meaningful and conducive to greater success through getting stronger and moving better. And I want to share that with you. So before I get started, definitely like, subscribe, and then of course share these videos with someone for whom you think they might make a difference. And in this edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday Training, we are going to be talking about priorities. We're going to be talking about priorities in programming. That's a lot of P words. Priorities in programming from the PAC perspective. I think that's 4 P's. That's probably going to be the 4 pillars of P's. I don't know. I'll come up with a half-rate title for this thing later on. So, when we're talking about priorities, we look at it from the macro and we look at it from the micro as well. We look at it from the macro through the lens of the PAC profile, the standard operating system in autism fitness, and then we look at it from the micro perspective in the session-to-session tweaks that we do with the exercises themselves and exercise placement. That's called program design. Both of these have a high level of importance, both from the general framework of programming and then the specifics of I am actually coaching an athlete or multiple athletes right now. I mean, I'm not, and you're probably not because you're watching this, but when you are, that's what you'll be saying in your head. And when I'm coaching, that's what I'm saying in my head. I'm saying I'm coaching an athlete right now. Yeah, that's what I'm saying sometimes. Other times I'm saying other things, but right now I'm saying that. Anyway, let's look at it from the PAC profile perspective with relation to prioritization. That rhymed, didn't mean it to, cool. With prioritization in the PAC profile, so we have our physical, we have our adaptive, we have our cognitive. Physically, what is the athlete able to do? What is their baseline ability with this particular exercise, whether we're talking about a squat, an inverted row, an overhead medicine ball throw, a scoop throw, heavy carry, any of these and more. From an adaptive perspective, how motivated and focused is the athlete to complete this particular exercise in general, but really right now? That gives us our adaptive. And then cognitive, from the neuromuscular perspective, how is the athlete with their proprioception, their kinesthetic awareness, fancy words for saying how is their body positioning and their ability to move in the most efficient way, with the absence of compensatory movement patterns, going too fast, going too slow. Usually it's too fast. And then from the neurological perspective, communication, processing, and of course the athlete's ability to follow along with directions, right? All of these things make a big difference. They are very important. These are all the things in the Autism Fitness Certification curriculum because they all matter and all are going to be inherently important for optimal programming, coaching, athlete experience, all that stuff. So when we look at it from the prioritization perspective, yeah, we're prioritizing these 3 things. These are the 3 main skills with respect to running a program and then running a session. And you'll find, if you haven't already, that one of them is always going to take precedence. Right? So if an athlete is starting to get dysregulated, for example, then our supporting of their adaptive functioning is going to take precedence. If the athlete is focused, ready, then our cueing around that particular exercise can take precedence. If we are trying to figure out the best way to cue this athlete to keep their hands on the handles correctly, if they're doing a standing band row or a cable row, for example, then the cognitive is going to take precedence. What do we need to do in order to make sure that this athlete has the correct framework or idea or thinking about and processing this particular movement pattern to the best of their current ability. So we might be jumping, I call it the gumball machine, from the physical to the adaptive, back to the physical to the cognitive, depending on the athlete, of course, and depending on the situation. So the exercise that they're doing right now, or if they're in between exercises, if they're transitioning from a break, what matters most right now? If they have difficulty transitioning from a break, for example, then the adaptive functioning is going to take precedence, and also that communication. So we have the cognitive. That's where we have the interaction between all of these three as well. So that is the macro. Looking at the PAC profile with how do we prioritize what we're focusing on in our coaching and programming. And then we have the micro. That's our programming itself. How do we prioritize that? Well, in Autism Fitness programming, we have 3 different phases in a session. We typically have our warm-up, we have our power, mostly our medicine ball throws, and then we have strength. We know that strength movements, our squatting, pushing, pulling, hinging, carrying, are going to have the highest carryover, meaning they're going to provide the greatest training effect and generalization to activities of daily living. They are going to get our athletes safer. They're going to get our athletes stronger. They're going to get our athletes more independently capable. So that is where we are going to spend the majority of our, whatever it is, 35 minutes, 45 minutes, 55 minute session with that athlete or that group of athletes performing those strength-based exercises, because when we think about it from the perspective of activities of daily living and we want skills that are going to transcend that situation, then it always comes back to strength. These are things that we know in the realm of neurotypical fitness programming. We just have to take that block and place it into the realm of neurodivergent fitness training. All right? Simple, not easy. But the premise and the practice is still fundamentally there. Of we need our athletes to squat, press, pull, hinge, carry. And now in our session, we're going to divide up our time to focus on that mainly. And then with each individual athlete, we have to look at what is their current baseline ability with each particular exercise and with relevance to other exercises. So we're starting to compare and contrast. Hey, this athlete is really good with their standing band rows, but they need a lot more work on their squat. So if we're looking at that, breaking it down from a programming perspective, we may just have that athlete do 3 sets of the band rows that day because they've already got that movement pattern down. It doesn't mean we're stopping. It doesn't mean we're not going to continue to progress it. Certainly not. But in the name of prioritization and in the practice of prioritization, I can't believe I got that sentence out. In the practice of prioritization, we need more of those squats. And if we're taking this into account with a whole person-centered approach, not in the new agey way, but taking into account that this is a living, breathing, thinking, caring human being who we want to be an active participant in our program, well, then we also have to consider that the squat or any other exercise that they're working on, because it's more challenging, might not be their preferred exercise right now. So we may also need a strategy for implementing more of those sets of the squats, while also considering that the athlete probably wants to do fewer of them. So you've got this, you've got a situation where you have an imbalance between the motivation, possibly, and the performance level also. So the necessity of more performance, so we need more sets and more reps of that squat to get it better, and we have less motivation from that athlete. It's not always that way, but it's one thing to take into consideration. So we may have to focus more attention on adaptive strategies, motivation, focus, making those situations more reinforcing, and having that squat maybe earlier in the session, or dividing up sets throughout the session as well. There are a couple different strategies, many of which you get in the Autism Fitness Certification Program, hint, to implement that type of program or that specific need in a program, because the athlete needs more of this squat. They want to do fewer of them. So how do we, how do we wind up coming to terms and having a program that works for that athlete, while also looking at the other exercises in the program, still getting in those 3 sets of standing rows, those band pull downs, all the other strength exercises that we're going to be doing, farmer's walks, modified push-ups, etc. So when you are localizing this to an individual or group program, from a general perspective, you're looking at pack profile. What do we need physically? What do we need adaptively? What do we need cognitively? And where are we going to be spending the majority of our time? Do we need more exercises, fewer exercises, more sets of one exercise, fewer sets of another exercise? And then we're getting into the programming structure itself. We know that we want to be spending the majority of our programming time in those strength exercises, again, squatting, pushing, pulling, hinging, carrying. And how are we setting this up for each individual session so that we know we're going to get the most amount of time and the best performance with the exercises that the athlete is going to need in order to be stronger and more independent with those particular movement patterns. Now, if you have an athlete who all around with the pushing and pulling and squatting and hinging and carrying is doing great, and we can continue to add sets and add weight and add reps, awesome, but that's atypical, right? So usually, and even over time, there might be an exercise that the athlete themselves want to prioritize, or something that you see, oh, we can, add in more sets of this pull down, or we can start adding in an inverted row here. These are the things that lead to small but important programming tweaks. So if we're going to encapsulate this all, it's that when we're prioritizing in programming, we're looking at it from the macro perspective with the pack profile and the micro perspective with exercise choice, how we're putting them into the program, like where do they fit in, how many sets, how many reps, what the weight is, and then adding in our adaptive supports, of course our cognitive supports as well, but our adaptive supports around those particular exercises. And that is going to be the basic funnel, or I guess calculator, to be old school, with programming math. I mean, those are the formulas, taking into account the pack profile vision or perspective, and then adding in, well, what do we need to accomplish in this program? What should this program look like? Because this is the outcome that we and the athlete want as well. So that's prioritization. Big, small, both matter. And I'm Eric Chessen, founder of Autism Fitness. I'd love to know how this has influenced your programming, how it might influence your programming, what you got out of it. Leave those in the comments below. And if you're interested in becoming an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, head on over to autismfitness.com. You can learn all about the curriculum, download the syllabus, even get started, and then meet me on one of the full-day virtual practical dates. So thank you for watching. Before you go, definitely like and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another edition of Tuesday Training. Thanks for watching.